Okay, so we're going to have a look at a foot roll controller for this video. Hopefully at the moment you'll have something like this. So you've got a controller on the ground and you've added a few bones with all the IK handles that I mentioned in the previous video. And if you select one of these bones, you're able to control the animation of the foot. And if you go down, we can do the toe rotation. And if you go down again, we can control the ball rotation on the foot. And at the very end, with this particular character anyway, you can do the actual foot direction as well. So we're going to set up a foot controller. So rather than having to individually go and select each one of these bones to rotate it, because what you're probably going to do is do some kind of heel, ball, toe rotation, we can set all that up Maya with just one slider. And it also means you can hide all the controller bones here and just stick with the main controller at the bottom. We're going to create an attribute on this controller here and then use the contribute to animate some driven keys. So first of all, we need to add an attribute to this. So call it foot roll. So if you go up to the edit box and go down to add attribute. So if you click on add attribute, it asks you for a long name. Let's just call it foot roll. We want it as a float, so we want a number between, with a decimal point basically. Minimum, if you set that to something like -10, so we can do the heel roll part of it. And maximum, let's have it at 20. And the default is 0, so we've got a flat foot on the ground. Just click on OK, and it's added the word foot roll to our controller here. So with this, if you select the foot roll and then middle click inside the window, you can slide backwards and forwards to the minimum and max number. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up some constraints using this foot roll. So when it's at a certain number, so when it's at -10, we have the character on its heel, and when it's at +20, we have it on its toe. So set that to 0 for now. In the animation tab, if you go all the way along to key and click on it and work your way down, you will see set driven key. If you go along to set driven key and just click on set, it brings up this window. So it's asking for a driver and a driven key. So the driver is going to be the foot roll. So the values in the foot roll is going to be what drives the rest of these joints. So we've got the foot roll selected. If you click on load driver, it loads up the actual object itself, and right at the bottom there we've got the word foot roll. So if you click on foot roll, that's that bit sorted. What we want next is the driven key, so what this is actually going to drive basically. So if you click on the first bone, yours will be called hopefully foot or toe control or something. I've just left mine as they are at the moment because I didn't need to. So work your way down, and we want to control the Z axis on this. So find our way down to control Z. Now let's hit load driven first. So load driven, control Z, and there's our two kind of main controllers here. So the foot is currently flat on the floor, and our foot roll is currently set to 0. So if you just key that, so it adds a key. And if we have a look at this bone now, you can see that it has a key set on it. If we go back to foot roll, and if we make this -10, we can then select this joint again, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe rotate it, let's say 30 degrees. So there's 30 degrees on that foot. Once you've done that, if you hit key again, and then have a look at the foot roll, you can see that as we middle slide the mouse button, we can now control this foot moving, and it'll move between -10 and 0 obviously. So now it's just a case of working our way through the heel, ball, toe animations and setting various keys on the foot roll and the other object, sorry, the other joint within the skeleton. So if you go back to 0, and now we want to select the roll here, the heel, sorry, the ball part of it, sorry. So we've got the ball part selected, and we need to load the driven key in again. So load driven, sorry, load driven, so that's now the next joint, and again we want rotate Z. So we should still be on foot roll 0, which we are, and hit key. So let's move forward perhaps to 10, and we want to rotate this forward. So select the joint you want to rotate, and perhaps rotate it 30 degrees. Once you've got those two things set, hit key, and then go back to our foot roll again. So in that position, when foot roll is 10, we're on the ball of our foot. So again, if you just select this and hold the middle mouse button down and drag, we've now got down to the heel at frame 0 and then up off the heel to -10. So we've got some kind of foot roll now working just with one slider. So if you go to 10 again, and this time we want to select the bone that's going to control the toe. So if we select this one and then load the driven key and again rotate Z and set a key. So we need that to be in that position when the heel is up. If you go to this again and select 20, we can now select this bone and perhaps move that forward to maybe 40 degrees and set key. But you also need this one realistically to straighten up as well, because we're no longer kind of crunching our toes anymore. So if you just select this bone, load driven, and set it to rotate Z, and we want to get this back to 0 again. So let's just rotate that back to 0 and hit key. So if we have a look at the foot roll now, at its maximum amount, we've now got this character on its toe. And as we move the slider back down again, it goes back onto the ball of its foot, then flat onto the floor, and then off onto its heel. So we've now got a ball roll here. So we should be able to get rid of all the actual bone controllers or hide them to do with the foot. But as you can probably see there, just at the very tip of the heel, this is starting to come away. And we haven't dealt with this yet. So it would just be another easy way of being able to control the foot here. So if we go back to 0 perhaps, and we can add another controller. So if we go up to edit, add attribute, and if we call it foot rotate, now this will be the full rotation of the actual foot here. So you've got to kind of decide how far back and how far forward you want it to go. So if we do, I don't know, -50 and do a maximum of 60 perhaps, and just hit OK. So we've now got a foot rotate as well. The driver, we need to click on it again so we can get the foot rotate to appear. We click on that, and on rotate Z, sorry, we want this joint here selected, load the driven, and it still rotates Z. Okay. So we're on 0 and 0, we might as well just set the key at the moment for that. Foot rotate, move it all the way back to 50. If we select this joint, we can go back to -50. Obviously there's a bit of separation now, but that's because it's gone past how far we can actually drag the leg. It's now straightened out. But it gives us a bit of flexibility for being able to perhaps rotate the ankle here and it just still work, or when the kind of leg is a bit higher up. Now we've got that, just hit key and that should be okay for that. To move it forward perhaps, and let's do the foot roll all the way to the end. So we had that at 60. If we select this here again and rotate it forward to 60 and hit key again. So now we've got control of the foot to know exactly kind of where we need the foot to be. And we've also now got control of the foot roll itself. So as you can see there, kind of, we're on the heel, we've just started to separate here. If we grab the foot rotate, we can just bring that back in. And I mean, that's a weird angle. You probably shouldn't be at that kind of angle anyway. But certainly in terms of the foot coming down, we've now got full control over that leg. Okay, so hopefully that should be easy enough to duplicate on the rest of the feet. And again, with the front legs as well. If for whatever reason you make a mistake and you need to kind of delete it and start again, just select the bone and whichever bone you need, so rotate Z. If you right click on rotate Z and go down to break connections, if you click on break connection, it will break the connection between the set driven key and the rotation of the bone itself, and you're kind of good to start again with it basically. Okay, right, that's enough for the foot roll. Thanks very much. So even though what we have to actually animate our character is now pretty much complete, you may want to switch between the IK system of the feet to an FK system and actually rotate the joints manually by hand. As I mentioned in the lectures, that you might want to have FK when the foot is off the ground and IK when it's on the ground. So in order to do that, if you have the IK handle, Maya does come with its own IK blend attribute. And if you click on it and drag it to 0 or just kind of change it to 0 in the actual box, you then have FK handles to rotate, and you can rotate the legs and key them by hand. The problem that we have is that we have this foot controller with a bunch of IK handles attached to it as well. So even though we can actually rotate the foot, all the IK handles down here at the bottom are still trying to find their route home. Obviously this causes huge problems around this area. So we need to be able to turn off all the IK handles at the same time. And that is just adding another attribute to the controller on the foot. So rather than control the rotations, we're now going to control the values within the IK blend. So if you just select the foot again, up to edit, and add attribute, and we can call it IKFK switch. You can have it as a boolean or as a float. I mean, leave it as a float, it's good enough, even though kind of the values in decimal points don't make that much difference. you may as well kind of leave it as it is. So if you have a minimum 0, maximum 1, and the default is 1, however, because you want the IK to be on by default and you need to manually turn it off. So click on OK, it adds the IKFK switcher to that. If you go up to key again, driven key, set. The driver is the switcher, and the driven needs to be the IK handles. So if you just select the IK handle, do load driven, right down at the bottom we have IK blend. So IK blend, set that to 1, our IKFK switcher is set to 1, and hit key. So we can do it again. We can select the second IK handle, load driven, IK blend, and hit key. Load driven, IK blend, hit key, and lastly, load driven, IK blend, hit key. So all those IK blends are now assigned to the IK foot switcher. So change that to 0. Load this again. So load driven, IK blend, set that to 0 and hit key. And just work your way back up again. So load driven, IK blend, 0, hit key. Load driven, IK blend, 0, hit key. And lastly, back to the one at the top, load driven, load driven, IK blend, 0, hit key. So now we have the IK switcher set up. If we go through the foot roll, we can do all the foot roll without any problems. We can do the foot rotate with any problems, and obviously we can control the movement of the foot with the actual controller itself. But if you want to do it where the foot's left the ground, so IK switcher, set that to 0 now. The foot roll now doesn't have any control over the bones, nor does the foot rotate. And we are now free to animate the individual bones however we like. And set the kind of keys on the rotation. Once we've finished the rotation of all the FK stuff, we can then reassign it back to all the IK handles. So if you just click on the switcher, you make it 1 again, which it has. So the legs attached, but the other foot bones or toe bones haven't. You basically just need to grab a hold of the foot roll and just move it slightly, and they all snap back into place again. So I'll do a quick example of the foot being able to move, and we'll see how we can go between the FK IK switcher on one of the legs.